Welcome friends to another 40k video. Today we discuss the Tyranids, and one in particular known as the Norn Queen, the apex of the Tyranid brain, and drawn some quotes in combat and description of the Queen from Warriors of Ultramar by Graham McNeil. So the Queens are the brood mothers of each hive fleet. The quotes to give you context are from when an Ultramarine captain leads a mission against the odds on a hive ship. The mission, just a little one, to kill the Norn Queen inside. The leader of the team is the Ultramarine Uriel Ventris. So, where would this Marine find the Norn Queen on the ship? Uriel cursed quietly, but contented himself with the thought that so long as they headed in the direction of the hive ship's heartbeats, they couldn't go far wrong. It had been a long-held belief of cryptmans that the reproductive chambers of the Norn Queen, the broodmother of the hive, would be closely linked to the hearts where the nutrients and the vital fluid flow was purest. And it's there they find her. The sight of the Norn Queen was something that Uriel would never forget for as long as he lived. The creature was massive, easily the size of a battle titan, its bulk filling the chamber with countless means of producing its monstrous offspring. A vast, mucus-ribbed tube hung from the walls, pulsing with disgusting motion and dripping great swaths of egg sacs to a slime-filled pool, where nurse organisms carried them away in great, scooped pincers. Huge pools of protoplasmic ooze bubbled and burst with motion as screeching infant beasts were drooled from its surface along bony shoots to begin growing almost as soon as they hit the ground. Thousands of gelatinous incubation larvae hung from resinous mucus on the great arched ceiling, supported on huge ribs of bone each thicker than the columns in the Temple of Correction on the crag. Stinking fluids coated the floor, and fetid steam gusted from millions of tiny orifices in the walls. Ropes of dripping intestine and nutrients pumped viscous fluids into the belly of the Norn Queen. Its vast, bloated head fused with the ribbed ceiling of the chamber. Six-legged creatures that resembled fat spiders crawled all over its body, cleaning, feeding, and ministering to their queen. Huge, javelin-like spines protruded from her bony carapace, each dripping with hissing poisons. The Norn Queen itself was as much a part of the bioship as any individual creature. The Marines there then try to take out the Queen, but she's guarded by many Tyranid beasts. But there was an opening. Uriel ran for the bloated belly of the Norn Queen, his sword raised to strike down the final beast between him and his goal. And before the ground collapsed, Uriel vaulted from the creature's shoulder onto the glistening walls of the chamber, his fingers closing on the hardened flesh of the Norn Queen's hide. A sudden, violent tremor shook the chamber, and a tormented animal wail built from behind Uriel. The small creatures dropped in their haunches in terror as the throat of the Queen, silent for hundreds of years, gave voice to a screech of unimaginable pain. Its body convulsed, tearing free of its egg sac, and mucus-hardened limbs fused to the walls, broke with the violence of the spasms. Huge tears in the Queen's belly ripped open, mutant growths erupting from everyone. The Queen's flesh boiled and ripped as her evolutionary genome was thrown into the anarchy of life and stimulated beyond all control by Magos Locard's gene poison. Like a pack of wolves, every creature in the chamber took up the wailing screech of agony as evolutionary imperatives were passed through the Gestalt consciousness, which linked every creature in the hive ship and every creature connected to the overmind. The chamber shook, the very structure of the ship screaming as every creature was driven into a frenzy of uncontrolled mutation. Uriel watched as creatures convulsed so violently they snapped their own spines, frothing at the mouth with aberrant growths and genetic deviancy. "It's working," shouted Uriel, as portions of the chamber erupted in white-hot fluids and acidic slime fell from the ceiling in enormous clumps. "Aye, it worked," agreed Pausanias, cradling his mangled arm. "But let's get out of here before it claims us as well." The Space Marines fought their way through the rapidly disintegrating chamber of the Norn Queen, the aliens jerking spastically as they died. Uriel felt a tremendous sense of vindication as they fled the chamber, knowing that he had made the right choice to lead this mission. He never saw the javelin-like spine shoot from the carapace of the Norn Queen as it slashed through the collapsing cavern. The 2-meter barb hammered it through his back and exploded from his stomach in an explosion of ceramite and flesh. The jagged missile passed clean through him, juddering in the necrotizing floor. He slumped forward, the pain beyond anything he had ever felt before. "Uriel!" screamed Pausanias. He looked down at the wound. Strange that there was no blood. A hard red scab formed around the exit wound, but there was no blood. A sluggish feeling permeated his body, and a sharp pain blossomed in his left side, spreading through his body. Pausanias lifted him from the ground. "Damius, you're an apothecary. Help him." Uriel felt his vision grey, his limbs becoming heavier and heavier. He couldn't understand. He'd been hurt worse than this before, and not felt this. He saw his heart rate spiraling downwards in the corner of his visor. "Bones of Corax," swore Damius. "It's phage cell poisoning. It's sending his Laraman cells into overdrive, and his blood is clotting throughout his body." "Then do something," bellowed Pausanias. Uriel felt their words fading and tried to open his mouth, but his vision greyed, and he felt his heart stop pumping as they clogged with coagulated blood. He closed his eyes and the pain went away. Ventris did survive, with the ability of a Marine to take much damage to fight another day. Another Marine aids him by giving him blood transfusions, but you can see the damage even a single spine can do to a Space Marine, unless there are others on hand. So we had some nice lore there, with a little bit of story that lends to explaining what she looks like and how dangerous she can be, and how many people are there guarding her. So let's now go, as we close out the video, for a little more general information about the Norn Queen. Inside the hive fleet are huge chambers, hundreds of meters high, and in these chambers the aforementioned Norn Queens reside. They make Tyranids. Every creature anyone on the surface of a planet may meet are made by her. The Queen is a machine, a biological one, and her focus is to make more Tyranids, to feed her genetic stuff from corpses found by coffin crawlers that are fed to her. The great maws are fed by the corpses, and then new needs are created. Once a single new creation has been made, perhaps some change in the evolution of the Tyranid to help them fight better, to help them defeat some enemy that has challenged them, more can then be made by the Queen, like clones, and parts emerge from different vats. Clusters of eggs spill from rows of depository orifices along its flanks. Fluid-filled depressions on its upper surface ride with maggot-like larvae. Fetal sacs hang like ripe fruit from umbilical branches, and huge larval teleporter worms burst from incubator pouches on the Norn Queen's sides. Some can emerge as adults and can then be directed by the Horde. Others are born as small wriggling larvae or eggs to be nurtured until they get to adulthood. And that, friends, is where I will wind up the video. So what do you think to the Norn Queens? I know I enjoyed reading about someone actually fighting them, and it gives you a real sense of what they look like. So now I turn things over to you. What do you think to the Norn Queens? Are they like you imagined? And I can't be alone in getting massive vibes when hearing about them and thinking of the climax to Aliens 2. Like that, but scaled up, and even more of a nightmare. Comment down below.